Bob Resselman. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Please excuse my informal, not attire. Makeup was
well. Yeah. You didn't know I was going to invite you on here today.
No, not at all. Thank you.
So Bob, you had some interesting comments over here in the chat box, and I wanted to bring you on because you seem like you're really well informed about this topic. Can you join in the discussion a little bit about the skills gap and what you're seeing?
Not the skills gaps; it's the cultural gap. Let me give you an example. I was visiting my granddaughter this weekend. She's 14 years old, and she goes to school in Des Moines, Iowa. And I asked her. And she's a very advanced student. I'm not bragging, but she is. I'm 14 years old, programming. She's taking calculus, programming in Python. She's all the way. She's right there. She doesn't need, frankly, anything. They'll chase her because her cognitive skills are so high. But I asked her a question when we were having breakfast. I said, "Do you know anybody? Do you have any friends that have trouble reading? Do you have any friends that just have trouble reading or have trouble adding numbers?" And she said, "No, I don't." And I thought back to my being 14 years old. And when I was 14 years old, now granted, I grew up in a different area. I grew up in New York, but I hung out in the playground and I played basketball. And one of the things I did when I played basketball is I hung out with kids that had trouble reading and had trouble adding up numbers. And they were part of my social circle. So that meant that the reason it's important is that they rubbed off on me and I rubbed off on them. Now what's happened, because we've structured social interaction among adolescents a really great deal. You know, you hear about kid exhaustion, that we've actually separated people according to their cognitive abilities. And it's saddening. Now, on the other hand, though, is I've been looking around at tech programs, voluntary tech programs in LA, and there is some attempt, but the educational models haven't changed to adapt to current technology. So there are a lot of programs, and I'm talking at the middle school, secondary level, are still coming in with the sage on the stage. It's called the sage on the stage as opposed to the guide on the side. So when we start thinking about jobs and employment in the future, this notion of cultural separation really sort of is there, for lack of a better.
Yeah,
so that's my immediate comment.
I think that's a fascinating thought. Is that so? Is it enough that we're addressing this quote unquote skills gap when there is a cultural gap as well? And what does that mean when we're looking at the way that we're trying to meet these needs that we have in the workforce today?
Right. Well, and then there's the next question of what do we talk about 5 years or 10 years out? The automation is real. I'm still researching it a great deal. I do think that a general AI, which is what we want, not specific AI. Specific AI is the bot that comes on and asks you if you want to buy sneakers. General AI is the person that says, okay, now I'm going to go out and I'm going to, I'm going to write a soundtrack for this movie, and I have to know a lot. I think what's going to happen is we see more pronouncement in general AI, and I can send you some people are working on it a great deal. The notion of employment is going to change. Right now, short term, we're still seeing a lot of warehouse work coming up. We are still seeing a lot of fine motor skill work having to be done. The replacement, as far as driverless vehicles, there's cars are getting a lot of attention, but they're secondary. The two ones you want to look at as far as artificial intelligence and transportation is interstate trucking and also container shipping on the seas. So, and the other thing is, and the other one is an energy. So, for example, there's a chart running around energy, gas, petroleum has always been what's called a high RPE industry, revenue per employee. It only takes 18 workers to man an oil rig. And oil rigs are terribly productive in terms of income. Now with AI, they're reducing the number, so you can get it down to 6. So we're seeing a lot of automation in energy. Once all those solar panels are laid in, there's not a lot of work after that because maintaining. Getting the grid in is going to be one, but maintaining it after that. So then we're seeing 2 levels of AI. One is what we call human enhancement, where the robot or the piece of artificial intelligence will be your friend and it will work with you. So you don't have to drive the forklift anymore. You might have to do what we call edge case exception work. But then when we're talking 20 years out, then things get interesting. Do we know what those new pieces of employment will look like in 20 years? Some of it we do, but most of it, some of it we don't. Most of it we do.
Right. What I love is going back to your 4 essential skills to maintain. You talk about the ability for self-directed learning, collaboration techniques, analysis, and creativity. That ability for self-directed learning. And then I look at, when I'm back to what we're here talking about today, I look at where associations come into a lot of this and supplying that learning, supplying that ability to change and learn and adapt. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about, so as we're looking, whether it is talking about today's skills gap problem, and then the cultural gap, and then AI and automation coming in and needing to quickly figure out, what am I going to do for work next? What does this mean for our industry? How do we adapt quickly? So when we are talking to students coming in or people who are mid-career and needing to figure out what's the next thing that I do, what are some of the ways that, we can guide people through addressing this problem? Because, we're talking about the associations that are supplying the learning. We talked about like with what Heather and Q Career is doing with supplying a way to find that and connecting, making those connections. What about the individuals themselves? I mean, what do you say, Bob?
Well, what I say, first of all, I think I have an interesting statistic to share with Heather, but I did an article about micro certifications for a DevOps agenda, talking about the relationship between associations, micro-certification, and professional proficiency. And there's huge, it was one of the highest rated articles written. So there's huge interest in that. There's people.
Where is this? I'm sorry. Where is this located?
I'll put the link. It's on DevOps Agenda, which is a magazine.
Gotcha.
It's a magazine, an online magazine. So everybody is getting that micro-certification counts. As a matter of fact, I'm being micro-certified right now in Hyperledger, which is a cryptocurrency technology. It's the essential cryptocurrency technology, blockchain. So that stuff does count. And the reason I got certified in this, because I predicted, it's going to be a need in the future. So for the Linux Foundation offers a certification. Again, there's another one. Linux Foundation offers the class for free, but the certification costs $90 or $99. Mm-hmm. So, and that's going to be important. Blockchain technology is going to be important. People should pay attention to it. So going back to what association says, there really has to be a value proposition. There's 2 things. What's the value proposition? And I'm sorry, the gentleman over here to the left of me, I forgot his name.
Joseph.
All right. So it's Joseph. I referred to him as Jonathan earlier.
AV guy. AV guy, yeah. So what becomes interesting, it's interesting I can do that and it works.
I know, he's down here to me. But yeah.
What becomes interesting is, what's the value proposition that we can offer the learner? And the first one is obviously AV. AV is not going to go away. And the other interesting thing is AV is going to be one of the industries that still requires real-time interaction. It's going to be very hard to have robots crawl through ducts efficiently for the next 10 years.
Right.
So there's real work in there. But what the Linux Foundation has been very good about is they know how to go out and find the people and offer them something in the way that's meaningful to them. So with regard to associations, it's really what's the value proposition, and then how do we make that known? And then also, then it goes back to the third one, which is curriculum. How do we design our curriculum meaningful. So what that looks like concretely would be, well, the only one that comes to mind is the new techniques in instrument teaching, all right, where you can, whereas you've always gone to a piano teacher once a week for an hour, and that becomes your human tactile interaction point, and you're expected to practice another 20 hours before the next visit. So there's the curriculum has been designed between human interaction and also self-directed learning, which is what we call piano practicing, self-directed learning, and then also honing creativity, piano practicing, analysis, piano practicing, and then collaboration, playing in the orchestra. And that's really where the hot spots are. And sadly, people can't draw that dot, that there really is value in doing those sort of artistic collaboration activities that we let go. And so going back to the association, what becomes interesting then is how does an association like the United States of the Beef Packers, how do they offer that sort of curriculum in a way that's meaningful and valuable?
I love this. Okay, so very interesting. I need to go ahead and bring Patrick back but Bob, thank you. And if people want to follow you online, where can they find you?
I'm WrestleBob, RESELBOB on Twitter. And it's WrestleBob@gmail.com. And if you do that, and then also, Kiki, what I can do is, if you like, I can send you a copy of my bibliography if you want to move it around.
Please do. I would love to post a follow-up blog post about this. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you for the time, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my thinking.
You got it. Love it. All right. I don't know. What were your thoughts? I mean, hearing Bob talk a lot about, the fact that there are still those skills that are going to be needed. There are still those industries that are going to need the people to do it. But I think the piece that he commented on right there at the end that I just, my ears perked up and I thought associations, that collaboration piece, right?
I totally agree. I think especially because students in school, you get almost penalized for collaborating, right? It's all about the individual. Obviously you're not sharing tests. So we're really, and it's almost, and it's become a soft skill. And someone really has to teach this generation about collaboration, and schools do not do that. If anything, they penalize them for it.
Can I take this in just sort of a different direction just for a second? Because I always like to have an opportunity to challenge people to maybe collaborate with me a little bit and think in some different directions. But here's the deal. So we're talking about this issue with the changing workplace, this workforce need that just is not being met. And we just spoke about the collaboration piece. And I agree. My daughter's going through school right now. The collaboration piece is severely lacking. A lot of times they get their hands slapped if they're working together too much. And so let's talk a little bit about where associations fit in there, because certainly in the entrepreneurial space, we look at startups, we look at these incubators that we pull people together. The idea is innovation is going to happen if we have all of these different smart people together, working together to solve problems and build businesses. Is that something that associations you think should look at as maybe they are the hosts of those incubators. Maybe they're the ones who bring these different groups together. And that's part of the learning. That's part of the experience. That's part of that career development that they're offering. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm happy to kick that off.
Okay.
In particular, at AVIXA, we consider ourselves the hub of information and knowledge in our industry. And so the way we try to maintain that and to stay ahead of the future, as Bob alluded to moments ago, was by leveraging our actual membership, by bringing together our membership and our board of directors, letting them guide us into the future that they see as important and how they want to, in this case, get more people employed. We do so also in our certification, our micro-credentialing, our curriculum. We bring together those groups